Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 82. Screenwriting is like ironing. You move forward a bit, and then you go back and smooth things out. Paul Thomas Anderson.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Masterclass, and specifically Werner Herzog's Masterclass. I am super excited about this course that's going to be coming out real soon. But if you enroll now early, you'll get early access to his course. If you guys don't know who Werner Herzog is, he's an Academy Award-winning director. If you've heard his voice, you'll know who he is. He directed Grizzly Man, among other great documentaries and feature films. He's got a total of 70 feature films plus over 50 awards. It's remarkable. So he decided to team up with masterclass.com to create an amazing online resource for filmmakers as he teaches you, as he says, the essentials of filmmaking that you can learn within 2 weeks, and you definitely don't have to go to film school. This is over 5 hours of video. You'll get a workbook that you could download, as well as access to Werner as well. So the course is coming out very soon, but if you sign up now, you'll get early access. So all you have to do is head over to indiefilmhustle.com/masterclass to download this amazing course, which I've already signed up for because I want to take it. So I wanted to give you guys an update on what's going on with This Is Meg and the crowdfunding campaign that we've launched this week. We've already gotten almost 10% of our ask for budget, which was about $15,000. And we really need your help, guys. We need you to help us as much as you can. Even if you can't donate directly to us, please tweet, retweet, share, tell your friends, to whoever you can to help us out. We really appreciate it. And if, like I've said before, if you found any value at all in any of the things I do or Indie Film Hustle does, any little bit of help would really appreciate it. I'm really trying to make my first feature film, and I really need some help. I need some help from you guys. So whatever you guys can do would be great. And we have amazing incentives for you. Access to the Indie Film Syndicate, which is now up and running at indiefilmsyndicate.com, which gives you access to all of our courses, as well as new updated videos for This Is Meg. And since we've already shot 3 days, we'll be uploading a few new tutorials that we shot on set, which are really fun. So definitely check it out. If you want to help us out, thisismeg.com. www.thisismeg.com takes you over to our Seed and Spark campaign. So thank you so much for anything that you guys can do for us. Really appreciate it. Now, today's guest is an amazing composer and good friend of mine named Cris Velasco. Cris is hopefully going to be doing the music for This Is Meg as well. And Cris has an insanely impressive resume of projects he's worked on over the years as a composer. Now, Cris comes from the video game world. He's worked on $100 million plus video games. And of course, he's also worked on some of my projects, Red Princess Blues and Red Princess Blues Genesis and Lipstick and Bullets as well over the years. So that's how I know Cris. But some of his credits are God of War, Tron Evolution, Mass Effect, Borderlands, StarCraft, G.I. Joe, Beowulf, Jericho, and the list goes on and on and on. He is an amazingly talented composer, and I'm very proud to call him a good friend of mine. And I wanted to bring him on the show because I wanted to talk to him and kind of dissect about what it's like to work with a composer, like what's their process, how a director or filmmaker should talk to a composer, what's the process of working with a composer, and the options you have working with with an actual composer, whether you want to use computer instruments or actually go and record a full orchestra, depending on budget and options that there are for that. So Cris is a wealth of information when it comes to all that kind of stuff. And because Cris is awesome, he has told me this quick little story, which I think you guys have to stick around for the end of the show, because I'm going to share with you a piece of music that he wrote that's remarkable. He actually had a little extra time while he was recording another session for a video game, at Warner Brothers, and he had the whole Warner Brothers orchestra and everybody there. And he decided to write a Star Wars theme. And this is the Star Wars theme he uses to go out and try to get Star Wars work, which I think is awesome because both him and I are big Star Wars geeks. And I know it's Chris's dream as well as mine to work on a Star Wars property of any shape or form, whatever it might be. But you definitely, if you're a Star Wars fan, you got to listen to this music because it is so, I loved it. And it's very John Williams-esque and completely original, but awesome. So definitely stick around for that. Without further ado, here is my conversation with the incomparable Cris Velasco. I'd like to welcome to the show the legendary Cris Velasco.
Hello. Nice to be here, Alex.
Thanks, Cris. So, guys, Cris and I worked together on a few of my short films years ago, and unfortunately, we've remained friends ever since.
I know that was definitely one of the big downfalls of working for you.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to get into it, Cris. I mean, you've worked on some huge video games, and I wanted to first and foremost, why did you want to what made you want to become a composer?
Well, it took me a long time to figure it out, and I was just going to a junior college, trying to figure things out and taking, just a lot of different classes, trying to figure out what am I interested in. And I had never had any musical training. I did play guitar in a death metal band prior to that.
That makes so much sense.
And I took a music appreciation course. Not even sure why. I was just like, oh, well, that'll give me some units. And it kind of studied all sorts of music from, current, whatever was currently playing on the radio back then.
Like in the 70s, got it.
Yeah, in the 70s. To jazz, to blues, to, a lot of stuff I just wasn't that interested in. And then one day we were studying Mozart, and they played Mozart's 40th Symphony. And I just had this epiphany. It just really moved me. Mm-hmm. And I decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to compose.
Wow.
Which was just so weird because I'd never had musical training, couldn't read music. The only classical music I remember listening to up until then was like Peter and the Wolf when I was a little kid.
Right, of course.
And of course, like John Williams. I had no idea that I could actually compose, but I started doing it and put together a little portfolio of stuff and then used that to apply to UCLA and got into their composition program, and it went down.
And that's the way it went down. So how did you get started in this crazy world of composing video games?
Well, I fortunately got into games back when not a lot of people were doing it. Mm-hmm. And it was really looked down on. It was sort of the redheaded stepchild of music for any sort of entertainment.
Is it still kind of looked upon like that, or are opinions changing?
Oh no, opinions are changing. At least by composers. Everybody wants to do video games now.
Oh really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm constantly pitching for stuff against some of the top film composers in Hollywood. So yeah, it's become very competitive.
So you got into it early on when there wasn't as much competition.
Yeah. And there was still competition back then. Now it's just, seems kind of ridiculous. But, when I graduated from UCLA, I suddenly realized, oh my God, they didn't teach me at all. Like, what do you do when you graduate? Like, how do you actually go out and, earn a wage as a composer? So I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree just to kind of hide for another year or two. and the head of the department there told me, yeah, no thanks. We're not interested in having you back at the school.
That's great.
And the reason was because according to the school back then, what I was interested in writing was they considered low art.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. Wow, really?
They wanted people that would write this, obscure concert music that, that nobody listens to, nobody wants to listen to. And because I wanted to, write something that was melodic for a medium that would actually be heard by people, I was already a sellout, and they didn't want any part of that. Now, of course, they send me requests for money every year. But...
Of course, you're an alumni. Of course. So what's the process of working on, I mean, you've worked on some like $100 million+ budgeted video games. Like, how do you work on something that big, and what kind of pressure are you under? I mean, it must be obscene.
No, I just, whether it's like an indie title that, got most of their money off Kickstarter, or like you said, like $100 million franchise, I just kind of treat them both the same. And, it's just, I love what I do. I come down in the morning to my studio with some coffee. I turn on what I did the day before. I see if it's good or if I'm going to delete everything. And I just start working. And, I try to take on projects that inspire me. So there's never any real creative block.
So just so everybody knows, I mean, I've been in the cave, Chris's cave, man cave, if you will, and it is probably one of the coolest rooms I've ever been in my life. If for people in the audience who are our age, it's kind of like a Silver Spoons thing going on. In there's like toys everywhere. He's got an AT-AT. He's got giant statues, which I'm going to talk to you about how he got into the statue obsession afterwards. And then the best part of the whole piece is he's got this stand-up video game system, which has how many video games plugged into it?
I don't know exactly.
Like 1,000. There's like 1,000 video games, like old school, like every kind of Street Fighter you can imagine from every country in the world. Like, it's obscene. So every time I come over, I'm like, I tell my wife, I'm like, I'm not coming back for at least a few hours. I just have to play and have fun. It's a wonderful creative environment, without question. And on a side note, the reason why Cris now has become an obsessive purchaser of statues from aliens to predators and monsters and things like that is I took him to his first Comic-Con down in San Diego years ago, and his eyes just opened up. He's like, what is this? And he just started buying stuff left and right. And then I would piggyback on him. So I would buy stuff right behind him. I'm like, look, my boy's spending $1,000. Can you hook me up with this? It was a wonderful time. Before I had children, so I can't spend that kind of money nowadays. But
oh man, I miss it. Seeing you walking down the streets of San Diego.
Oh, it was horrible.
Your giant Hulk figure.
I'm staring at my giant Hulk figure right now, and it was heavy as a bitch, boy. I swear. And we were just
I can pull away because it's too heavy.
I was just bitching up a storm because I had like a Hulk, a Wolverine. I mean, it was a huge like statues I had, and we're just walking. We didn't have a dolly or anything, so we're carrying this for probably about half a mile to our parking spot. And I was bitching like crazy, but those were fun. Those were fun times, sir. Those were fun times. So, can you tell me? I know you've gone up to the legendary Skywalker Ranch a few times to record, and I've never been invited, but I'm not bitter. How is it to work there, and how is it to meet George Lucas?
Okay, well, I've only briefly met Lucas one time. I've recorded probably like 7 or 8 scores up there.
But you told me you had dinner with him every time. Was that a lie?
Oh, George. Yeah.
So you met him. You met him briefly one time.
No, that was yeah. It was. I think that was 4th of July, and I guess every 4th he would throw a big party at the ranch, and everybody that worked for Lucas would show up, and they had huge tents everywhere with barbecue and horseback riding and baseball and face painting and just it was just a whole big thing. And we happened to be up there recording the next day, so we got to go to this thing, and so George was sitting there not too far away,
and you were geeking out like crazy.
I was with some clients from Paris actually on that one, and one of them was such a huge fan. He's like, "Oh, I want my picture with him," but he was too scared to go up and talk. So he he just basically photobombed him. He's like, "Just take a picture of him and so I'm in the background." And you see this scared French guy like just kind of peeking up over his shoulder.
That's great. That's great.
And then my wife and I were like, "Oh, screw this. We're going to go up and say hi." And apparently nobody had told us this, but you're not supposed to approach or speak to George Lucas at these things.
Fair enough.
He doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And so we walked right up and said, "Hey, George, how's it going?" And he looked completely shocked. Didn't really know what to do, but Aaron got a nice picture with him.
Oh my God.
I invited him to check out the scoring session the next day, to which he said no.
Of course. So with that said, how is it working in like that? I mean, that's a legendary place to record, isn't it? How is it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's its own self-contained ranch, basically. It's I forget how many acres it is, but it's huge. It's like almost a mile from the inn where you can stay to the recording stage, and they've got these Skywalker beach cruisers everywhere. So if you want to ride a bike to the stage in the morning, you can, and you ride by and you'll see cows and sheep and deer and chickens, and they do their own wine there now too. You go past the vineyards, and it's just really beautiful.
Yeah, I heard that I heard he put vineyards in for tax reasons. Up in Monroe County, like if you have a vineyard, you get taxed some certain amount of tax breaks if you have a vineyard. So let me ask you, how does composing a video game differ than working on a film, for say a narrative film?
Well, they're nonlinear.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't score it like a film where you just watch the picture and be like, "Oh, this thing is coming up now," and it will always happen at the exact same moment. Obviously in a film, mm-hmm. Games are, the pace is usually determined by whoever's playing it. So yeah, you're just kind of composing to nothing, and then it's all about the implementation in the game when you to get in there and make it feel like it's interactive with what's going on screen.
Now, how much music do you actually make for like a video game? Like actual timed, the amount of music. I mean, I'm imagining is a lot more than it would be for a feature.
It just depends. I mean, some games don't require that much, and I've only I just finished something that only had it has maybe 12 minutes of music in it right now, and that's it. They felt like more was going to be too intrusive. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on another one right now that's going to be 100+ minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. And that's when it starts getting crazy.
Yeah, the deadlines are usually pretty laid back if you start with them from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So,
but I've heard you going crazy during those other kind of deadlines.
Yeah, well, then it's just crunch time like anything else, where you don't really get to sleep and you're miserable. And I really try to avoid that these days and get everything spread out and try to get involved as soon as I can.
Well, let me ask you: when you approach a composing gig, do you break it down per scene if it's a movie or a narrative? Do you break it down as a whole? How do you spot? How do you do a spotting session, if you will? And can you explain what a spotting session is?
What, on a film or on a game?
Both. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
For a game that there's not really a spotting session. I'll just get a document from the audio director. The bigger companies have someone that's kind of in charge of all sound, whether it's music, sound effects, VO, whatever. And those guys are the audio director. And they will usually set up like a document for me that just lays out exactly how much music is required, how long each piece is, what it's for. And then we'll have a discussion about the style and then I'll just kind of go from there.
Now, how about for a feature?
Yeah, so that with those, usually you'll sit down with the director and watch the film and sort of go scene by scene and decide: do you think this needs music? Yes, no, why not?
Then you obviously discuss tone and things like that, like what the tone of the movie is, the tone of the music is. Sometimes it's a little bit more experimental. Sometimes it's a little bit more on the nose. Stuff like that.
Yeah, and sometimes there will already be a temp score in there, something that the editor has used to help set the tone. So, and a lot of times if that's been in the film for too long, then, they get what's called temp love, and then
temp love. That's what it's called.
You're kind of stuck to then, in some cases, just doing a complete knockoff of this music that they have in there.
Yeah, which is generally Shawshank's soundtrack. Isn't that what everyone uses as a temp track?
Maybe a while ago. Now it's all, whatever Hans Zimmer's done lately.
So a lot of boom. So I'll tell you guys the way that me and Cris met for the first time, which is relative to what we're talking about. I come over to Chris's house. We reached out. We found each other. I won't discuss how we found each other because I don't want to share that information. And I don't think
say it was Match.com.
All right. Well, it was. I didn't want to say it. It was a difficult time in my life. No, we found each other online, and I told him I had this short film. It was already done. It was Red Princess Blues, and he's like, yeah, come on over. And then I think once I walked in the door, Cris always told me, he's like, oh my God, this better be a good movie. If not, this is going to be a really awkward meeting. Because imagine you sit down, you put the short
director over to my house
before ever seeing a piece of footage, ever seeing any of my work or anything. And just like, I hope this is okay, because if it isn't, this is going to be a really awkward conversation. And I just kept thinking to myself, my God, imagine if I would have put down my short and it would have just been, a guy naked reading a Yellow Pages while eating ice cream, and that's the short. And I would have just loved to see Chris's face going, how do I get him out of here?
Can I realistically pull off a seizure?
Exactly. So let me ask you, and this is something I always wanted to ask you. What is your creative process like when because it's a mystery to me, like music composition is an absolute mystery to me. So how do you how do you compose? I know it's a really deep question. Cris, can you explain how do you compose music? What's your inspiration? What is your creative process? Do you listen to other stuff? Do you did it just come from you? You just start hitting a key on a keyboard? How does it work for you?
I will rarely listen to other music just because I don't want to be influenced by something else. I mean, I'm already you make up your own style over the years, hopefully, but that style has been influenced by everything that you like.
Right.
So in that regards, I'm already influenced by what I'm going to write, but I don't want to listen to something too closely that's going to be similar to the tone of what I'm doing, because I don't want to rip it off, accidentally even. So I don't listen to too much unless it's a style that I'm not super comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, I will study that style of music a lot to figure out, okay, why does, whatever, why does reggae sound like reggae? What makes it that? And then
You start deconstructing it.
yeah. So that's when I'll like to listen to something. Or a couple of years ago, I did a game called Company of Heroes, and it was a World War II game, and this particular campaign was you were playing the Russians. The Russians against the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
And so the music needed to take on a Russian slant. So I listened to just tons of Russian music. And
you were watching Rocky IV, obviously.
Exactly.
Lot of Foreigner. Got it.
So, you figure out why, because Russian music has a sound. Like, why does it sound that way? So I, deconstructed it, figured it out, and tried to incorporate that into my own writing.
Now, do you write? Do you read music? You read music now.
Yeah.
And you write music as well?
And I write music? What do you mean?
Like you write it, like you sit down and just draw those funny little things that I have no idea. I'm a complete idiot when it comes to music. So I'm assuming, because I know that you can write, like you can play music on a computer now, and in the computer program a lot of times will write the music for you. So a lot of guys that I know of, I've known other composers who don't actually know how to write music, but the program does it for them.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, so I don't want to say I can write music because I feel like composing is writing music, but notating music is sort of the, putting the ants on the page.
Got it. The ants on the page. Perfect analogy.
Yes, I can notate music, but I don't really do it that much anymore. I know there's still composers out there that will sit at a piano with their staff paper and a pencil and write it all out. Mm-hmm. That's not really me. I do like to, sit at my computer and play through the keyboard there and have it record and notate for me as I play it in. That's just the other way. It's just too time consuming.
It's old. It's a little bit more old school. I got you.
Yeah, and especially with film and even more so TV, that the deadlines are just so insane that there's no way you could sit there and write everything out by hand.
Now, what are you looking for in a great collaboration with a director? Like, how do you like to work with a director when they come in on a feature or on a narrative piece?
I really like guys that have a really good idea of what they want. Like, I'm not so much of a fan of the tell me, oh, just do what you want, because it never works. I'll say, well, okay, well, here's how I think it should go down. And usually they may not have an idea of what they want, but they have an idea of what they don't want. And so we'll go through so many iterations, finding all these things they don't want. And then when you finally get down to it, they'll be like, like the score to Bram Stoker's Dracula, like that's what I like. It's like, oh,
well, I've been using Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as a reference.
So a good idea of the sound they're going for is something I really appreciate.
Got it. And then as far as when we worked together, we did. It's been a while, so I don't remember the exact details, but there wasn't a tremendous amount of revisions, was there?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think we kind of vibed and we caught exactly, because I was just always so impressed with whatever Cris showed up with. I'm like, oh wow, that's really great. Do you like to be challenged, by the way? Do you like a director or a filmmaker to kind of like push you and like maybe a little bit more here or there?
Yeah, I've done like in games, I've done so many games that I feel start to sound similar. Mm-hmm. because there's just a style that a lot of people like, and so I am sort of looking for.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Opportunities to be a little more creative, and I have some projects now where I feel like I can really do something different than what I'm used to, and that's very rewarding. It's it's the only way you can grow as a composer is to be challenged.
Yeah, being pushed. Now, what can you explain to the audience or to the tribe, if you will, how you work with a sound mixer? Because I know this is a big thing a lot of filmmakers don't really understand, is that, a composer in a perfect world will go in and sit down during the mix to kind of help the sound mixer work with the effects and how to, where the score hits higher or lower or something like that. Can you explain that process a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I don't even bother going to the mixes anymore because I found that the composers' ideas and wishes take a backseat to sound effects. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've written this, huge music where I was asked like, oh, you got to make it huge. It's big. And then the whole thing is covered up by an explosion. And it's like, what? There's no point in even having music there. So I try to not score the big climax scenes anymore, just because you can't even hear it. It's pointless.
Right, because it's just sound effects everywhere.
Yeah. But
is that why Hans Zimmer does that bong?
Right, it cuts through anything.
Through my soul, that damn thing cuts through.
I mean, like Interstellar, you couldn't even hear half the dialogue because the music was so loud. Yes, like brilliant.
Brilliant. I know, right? That whole pesky dialogue and sound effects, it's just hurting the movie, really. It should all be just visuals and music. Maybe you could create a new genre of movie. So you don't work, but when you worked with me, we did actually do that. We actually had you walk in, and in a perfect world, the composer does have some sort of, I mean, there's a balancing point. I mean, obviously it's not all about the music, but it has to be a part of it, and it has to be, depending on the scene, a major part of it. So mixing it at the certain time, so, sound effects don't overpower music is ideal in a perfect situation, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's it really is, music and sound effects is a marriage, and like any marriage, there needs to be compromises,
right?
And it can't be music all the time, and it can't be sound effects all the time. And the best movies are the ones where they really get that and spend a lot of time and energy finding that perfect balance.
So when John Williams, Danny Elfman, or Hans Zimmer's, they're in the mix generally, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I would imagine that they're in the mix. Maybe not the entire time.
Sure, but somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, in your opinion, what does a great score do for a scene or a film? And can you give us an example of when you thought a score just kind of like took it over the top?
Well, I mean, I think a score is great when it's enhancing the scene. Like, a lot of times people don't even notice that there's music. And that's generally good because it means it wasn't sticking out in a bad way and detracting from the story. Because, the music is just another voice. It's another character in the film. And, it's like if you had one annoying actor that was screaming all his lines.
Right.
Just... it's like, oh my God, the movie was great, but that one guy that was just screaming. So, music, I've definitely seen films where the music was that loud screaming guy, and like, oh, this is awful. Like, if there was ever a time for sound effects to take over, it was this one.
All right. And these are big, I'm assuming these are big movies you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't...
No, don't name names, of course, but I mean, you want to work again. But yeah, some big budget movies sometimes.
But oh God, what the hell was I going to say? So that's my idea of a good score is when when it's just another player in the movie. It doesn't stand out, and it really enhances the experience. Like, you may not notice it's there, but if it was gone, you would definitely miss it.
And then there's those wonderful cues that are legendary, like Jaws.
Yeah, and then exactly. And my favorite living composer is John Williams, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of composers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just a brilliant musician, and he's got it's a little old school, maybe, the way he does things, but I absolutely love it.
He's been nominated, I think like 50 times for an Oscar, right? Something like that.
Oh, God, yeah, I can't.
Every year he gets a nomination, no matter what he does. Every year.
Every year that he's written something. There's been a few years where he took a little hiatus from film. So he wasn't nominated because he didn't have anything.
And sometimes he's nominated twice
in person.
And sometimes he's nominated twice in the same year. Like I've seen that too. It's obscene. He's won I think 5 or 6 times out of all those times, but it's insane.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Yeah.
But he's the guy that comes to mind when I think of what makes a great score. And it's not only does it just enhance the scene, but there are those moments where the music comes in and you get goosebumps because it's just so good, and it just elevates what's on the screen. And like Jaws, perfect example, but the one that I think of is the bicycle scene at the end of E.T.
Oh,
and
so
you get that
beautiful
theme coming in, and it's just like, oh shit!
No, I get like goosebumps thinking about that. I still remember that. It's like amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. I thought one of the he's done. We could talk about John for a second. He's done, because I know him. No, he's done. So many legendary scores: Star Wars, Indiana Jones. But like one of the more recent being 15 years ago, when he did the Harry Potter score. Because he only scored, I think, the first movie, and then after that, I don't think he scored any of the other ones.
That's incorrect. He scored the first 3.
First 3, exactly. Okay, thank you for correcting me, sir. But I know that theme now will live on forever because that's the theme of Harry Potter. But I just remember just thinking how beautiful that it just captured Harry Potter so beautifully, just so wonderfully. But like we've talked about before, and I think it was on the trip that you and I went to Comic-Con, you got the Jaws poster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that when we went to Comic-Con, he got Chris bought a autographed John Williams poster, but he actually drew the notes for Jaws theme on it.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool. But how many notes is that? It's like 3 notes? Or 2 notes? How many notes is that for the Jaws theme?
Well, it's a minor second, so if you think just now you're not going to know what the hell E to F means, but
right.
So that's obviously 2 notes, but then it goes bump 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 bump.
Right,
bump.
right.
So really 3 notes.
Right. So, but that's how genius that is, because that's one of the most genius music cues in all of movie history. I
love too in his interviews how he always has a reason behind everything. He's not just sitting down like, oh, that sounds cool. But so Spielberg apparently came over and Williams was like, oh, here, let me play you the theme for Jaws and play, this little 2-3 note motif. And Spielberg's like, what?
I love that. Like, were you in the room that Spielberg goes, what?
I know he kind of like looks off to the side. He's like, oh, I made a huge mistake. But then John Williams explains it as like, no, this shark, it's just an eating machine. It's just constantly on the hunt. It's driven by this internal motor to just hunt. And so it's this kind of perpetual motion thing. And so this little bump, 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 bump is that's the shark. You don't want to get fancy. It's just, it is what it is. And then, so he describes that. And then, and then the Spielberg's like, whoa, okay, you're right. And, now it's one of the most iconic film score themes ever.
Oh, but the thing is, he doesn't have one of those. He's got like dozens.
Yeah, it's not enough that he could just do one iconic theme. He's got to,
So let me ask you, what would be some advice you can give a filmmaker when interviewing a composer? What are the things that he or she should look for? We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Yeah, well,
I mean, obviously, besides just calling you, but
well, I would say like have a passion for what they're doing. It's not like I wanted to write string quartets, but they're not really taking off. So I thought I'd try my hand at film scoring. I hear there's a lot of money in that. Like those kind of people just sort of make me crazy. It's like a lot of people want to do games because they're it's like Hansel. They're so hot right now.
Right, but they don't have a passion for the medium.
No, and it's like, so what games do you play? I don't like games. Like, well, why do you want to work in games? And that seems crazy. And same thing with film. It's like, you ask somebody like, oh, what's your favorite movie? And I don't really like going to the movies. Like, oh, really? But you want to score my film? Like,
so in other words, look for someone who has passion for what they're doing in the medium that you're trying to have them compose. So if they've done, if you're looking for a composer for documentary work and they're really passionate about documentaries, that's something you should look into. And same thing for features or video games.
Yeah, I think so. And then, just see if you, I like to work with people. I kind of, over the last few years, have developed what I call my no asshole policy.
Oh, thank God you only developed that a few years ago, sir. If not, we would have never worked together.
you were grandfathered in. And I just sort of figured, God, life is too short. Like, I really love my job, and I don't want to bog it down working with people that I just don't enjoy. And, no matter how good their project is, it's going to stress you out if you're working with somebody that you just don't get along with. Mm-hmm. And that's just not for me. I want to work with somebody who, on the weekend, be like, hey, you want to grab a beer and go see whatever new film. And, if you can't do that, if I have no desire to see somebody socially besides just work, then I just kind of figure, this project may not be for me. And right. if you start to feel that way, then I don't see how you can do your best work.
That makes perfect sense. And that's a good piece of advice, almost with any avenue of the business. Being able to sit in a room with somebody is sometimes more valuable than talent. To a certain extent. I'd rather have a genius a-hole or a really good nice person. I'll go with the really good nice person, even though the other guy might be a genius, but his other issues are gonna.
There are some composers that I think are genius a-holes, mm-hmm. and you always wonder. I was asking an agent that represents one time, like, hey, how come like this guy's so good? Why isn't he working? It seems crazy. And his agent was like, well, because he's kind of an asshole. And he's like, yeah, he's so amazingly talented, but that's why like people will kind of just fade away. You're like, oh man, whatever happened to so and so? It's like, well, that guy just couldn't pull it together and be like a normal person. He had to, he had to ruin it.
There's a few directors and actors I know of like that that have gone down that road.
Yeah. No one wants to deal with it. It's already, hard enough. It's a fun job, but it brings some serious stress to the table. And, on my side, like trying to be creative every day for like 12 hours a day, it drains me. And I don't want to have to deal with some a-hole on top of that.
Right, exactly. No question. What you do, what composers do is it's on, like I said, it's a magic trick to me. It's magic to me because it's something that's so far beyond anything I could ever do that I just look at it and I'm like, my God, it's just, like how do you just sit there and come up with something like on the fly? It's pretty remarkable.
Well, each each person has their own thing. I feel the same way. Like, I love art. Earlier you talked about what gets me going creatively, and art is one thing. And I know you haven't been to the studio for a while, but it is.
No, it was obscene when I was there.
Well,
last time I was there. Yeah, I know. They buy so much art. You and your wife, you guys buy so much art that now I think you've tacked it onto the ceiling because there's only so much more wall space you can actually use.
Well, that's next, and I kid you not, I've had that discussion with Aaron. So,
like, I mean, just a few on the ceiling. I mean, it's not a lot, just a few. I think it'll be so. So I wanted to ask you something about working with this legendary storyteller that you worked with, Clive Barker. How was it working with someone of his magnitude? Because he's a legendary writer and legendary storyteller, and you got to work with him on Jericho, the video game. How was it working with someone like that? And did you learn anything from him on a storytelling or a creative level?
I did learn from him, and I'll try to make this short because it's kind of a long story, but like, I absolutely adore Clive Barker.
Mm-hmm.
And I this is really a story of like my persistence and the lengths I'm willing to go to work with the people I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out just being, well, before I was into music, I was a fan of his books, and if I found out he was doing a book signing somewhere, I would travel there to go meet him, get my book signed, shake his hand, and just be around, one of my creative idols.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years down the road, I started getting into music and put together a little demo reel on a CD, which nobody does anymore.
What is this CD thing you speak of?
Except vinyl is back now, which only means cassettes are going to come back, and then CDs will be back again.
8-track, baby. I'm holding out for 8-track.
I just can't wait for the cassette boom, and everybody learns how to tape.
Cassette boom. So you left them a demo.
Yeah. So I put something together. Oh, it was just so awful. I shudder to think of what was on that now.
Okay.
And plus, back then, technology is not where it is today in terms of like producing something that sounds great coming out of your computer. So, oh God, it must have just been horrible. But I gathered up the courage to make this demo and then give it to him at a book signing and tell him, Clive, just so you know, we will work together one day.
You stalked him.
Not in a scary way, but yes.
No, you had I Heart Clive Barker all over your Trapper Keeper, sir. Okay.
I practice writing our names in cursive.
Yes, exactly. It's like a Twisted Heathers, even more so.
And then 2 years later, another book came out and another book signing happened, and so I brought him an updated demo. And after all these times, he started to remember me.
Security.
Yeah.
Security. He's here. The guy, the Velasco's here again. Please, security. There's a picture of you out front in the book signings. Don't let this guy in.
Well, it could have easily gone that way, but he was instead like so encouraging, and even told me, whether this is true or not, I listened to your last CD. I thought it was wonderful. Like, I can't wait to see how you've progressed over the last couple of years. I'll listen to this in the car on my way home. And
that's pretty cool.
And yeah, he didn't need to do that. And Clive is in a position where he doesn't need to lie to some 20-something-year-old about his stupid demo CD. He can just tell me to go F off.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
But he didn't, is the point. He said, just a genuinely nice person. And so this continued on, for a long ass time.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I'm at my old apartment. So this is probably, oh gosh, like maybe 13 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And
we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
I get a call at home and it says private number or blocked call or whatever. And the only people I knew that had that were my parents, because they were scared of telemarketers, so they blocked their number.
Okay.
I always thought someone was calling in, going to bother them at home. So blocked number. And I was like, oh, it's my mom. Like, okay, I better see what she wants. And answer it. And Clive has a very unmistakable voice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, very raspy, and so I wouldn't mistake it for anything. And then suddenly there's Clive saying, hello, is this Cris? This is Clive Barker. And my legs literally buckled. I had to take a seat because I felt like I almost blacked out. It's just like, first of all, how did he even get my number? And
he's Clive Barker.
And like Clive, and Clive is calling me at home. Like, what the hell is going on? And so we talked for a bit, and he said, "Well, Cris, you've been
please don't contact me again, Cris.
You've been giving me your music for all these years. I've really enjoyed seeing you grow as a composer. I have a project coming up, and I think it would be amazing to collaborate with you. And I think this is the time where you finally get to say, like, yes, we're working together." So he said, "Cris, if you're interested, I would love to have you on as my composer."
Wow.
And
wow.
Yeah, so I blacked out again. And no, but so this was not Jericho. It was a game called I forget what it was supposed to be called, but it got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just devastating for me. Well, and for Clive as well. He spent all this time, developing this thing, and so I got to go to his house and be in on creative meetings. He wanted me there to like throw out like musical ideas while we were talking about story.
So this is like a dream job for you.
It was absolutely ridiculous.
Like, you would have paid him for this.
I absolutely would have paid him for this. But so that got canceled, and it was just a huge bummer. And so I tried to stay in touch with him, but nothing really came up. And then, maybe whenever Jericho was that like 7-8 years ago or something, or
something like that. I can't remember. Yeah,
but same thing. I get a call again, and Clive said, "Hey, I've got this new game called Jericho. It's going to be amazing. I want you to compose the music for it." And again, it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so rad. And then a year goes by. I told you I was going to make this story short. It's super long. Just stop me just go, Cris. Okay, we get it. That's
Cris. We get it, Cris. So, so a year goes by. You finally work with Clive. But what?
Oh, yeah. The developer actually hired somebody else instead. They decided, no, we're not going to hire Cris. We're going to hire this other guy because he's cheaper.
And then Clive went to bat for you.
And then, a year later, the game is almost done. They go to Clive's house to show him the progress in the game, and he goes, "What the hell is this music?" That's like his first comment is like, "Wait a minute, what the hell is this music? Is this Cris Velasco?" Like, he couldn't believe it. He was just completely incredulous that I would write something so horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "No, we hired this other guy instead," and Clive just blew up. And he was my 800-pound gorilla on this one. Like, he literally told them, if you don't hire Cris, in the next 48 hours to rescore the game, I'm taking my name off the project.
Wow.
So they got in touch with me, and
you were in a good negotiating position.
I was. I found out later we could have asked for anything and it would have happened. But I'm glad I didn't take advantage because that's just not cool.
Right.
But by then, so the game was almost ready to ship. And so I had to score like 2 hours of music in about 12 days.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
And that included going up to Skywalker Ranch to record some choir.
And it's the best thing you've ever done.
Well, I don't know about that. But it was crazy. And that was really when I decided I don't want to do this crunch mode anymore if I don't have to, because it is a huge bummer.
So what did Clive teach you? Give me a couple of like things that you kind of learned from him.
Well, just being around him, he's so positive, and he just like radiates creativity. And you go over there, if you're in any kind of creative slump, you will leave his house with like a million ideas just bursting out of you. You're like, oh my God, I have to go create. It's just this weird persona that he has. But I was at his house. We were talking about how the music for Jericho should sound. And he's painting while we're talking. We're down in his big art studio. He's throwing on soundtracks, stuff that he likes. And we're just talking about the game and about the sound of the game. And then I was lamenting the fact that there was only, 2 weeks to score this, and that we didn't have the budget to record a whole orchestra. And Clive was telling me, he's like, this is a mismanagement of energy. Why complain about what we don't have? Because it's not going to change. So why don't you just focus on the positive and write the best score you can in 2 weeks? And I've just, anytime now where I start to feel like I'm going to complain about something, I just think about it. It's like, wait, why am I doing that? I can't change it. So if I can't do anything about it, why like bring all this negativity onto it? Like just move on and do the best with what you've got. That's
amazing. That's an amazing lesson. Most people go through a whole life without learning that lesson.
Yeah, well, I'm still learning it, but
yeah, we all are. So let me have a few more questions for you, because I know you're a very busy man. I want you to name 3 composers that have influenced you the most and why.
All right. Well, I would start off with Mozart, because without his music, I don't think I would have ever begun composing in the first place.
Okay.
And gotta give it up for John Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I mean, I think what I get most out of him are just the colors of the orchestra. That he's able to produce. It doesn't sound like another generic action score.
Right.
It just, and he doesn't really rely on any kind of electronics to add different sounds that way. I mean, the orchestra is a pretty finite thing. There's only, so many different kinds of instruments that fit into a typical symphonic orchestra. But just the way John Williams orchestrates, it just sounds magical to me. And then top that with his just kind of unparalleled ability to write melodies.
How old is he now? He's like 150 years old. I mean, the guy. By the time he got to Star Wars, he had already done like 20 years of stuff.
I think he's like 84.
Oh man, he's still going.
Definitely 80s. I can't remember. It's like between 82 and 84, I believe.
And he's still going, and he's still like the most.
Well, he just finished up, BFG for Spielberg, so we've got another score of Williams coming out this year.
Another Oscar nod.
Yeah.
And then who's the third? And who's the third guy?
Oh, okay. And then I have to say that John Powell has been a big
Really?
influence on me. Do you know John Powell?
I don't know John Powell. I thought it was going to be Danny Elfman, honestly, but
Well,
we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
yeah, I don't know. Of course, there's so many composers that have had an influence on me, but but John Powell did, just because of the way that he blends traditional orchestra with electronics.
Okay.
I mean, everybody does this now, but he was one of the first guys. Him and this guy Harry Gregson Williams, they just did it so well and so tastefully, and still do to this day. And for me, like, trying to learn that hybrid orchestra meets electronic, they really like shined a light on that for me.
Very cool. Now, these are the last three questions. Is the one that I ask every one of my guests. So, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn in life or in the film business?
Well, okay, there's one and I'm still learning it, so I guess that's the longest one. And that is to just take some me time. I work a lot, and I don't often give myself weekends, and I always feel like I'm slipping behind if I don't work on a weekend. And I enjoy what I do. Sometimes I just like to do it, but I don't want to look back and think, why didn't I spend more time, with my friends and family, or traveling, or whatever, because there's just so much to do and see. And I sometimes get wrapped up in the whole, like, I just gotta work. Got it.
Now, what are your three favorite films of all time? And that could be of today. It doesn't have to be like, no pressure, just three of your favorite films.
Okay. Favorite film is Empire Strikes Back.
Obviously.
I think my second favorite film is The Big Lebowski.
Okay. Good choice.
And I mean, those two movies I've seen more than anything else.
And they both really encompass your personality. You combine those two films, the vibe of both of them, and you got Cris Velasco, I think.
I guess I am kind of
you're kind of a dude.
Yeah, I'm sort of the dude at home.
You are the dude, but yet you have an AT-AT on your desk. So yeah, it makes sense.
And then third film, there's so many films that I love, but if I had to pick a third favorite, I would probably say Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Very good, very good. Now, originally we were talking about was Weekend of Bernie's 2, right. Sister Act 2, and what was the third one?
Air Bud 2.
Air Bud 2. That was the one.
Now
you just only like twos.
Yeah, so those really would have come. I think Empire Strikes Back was my first, the sequel is always better movie, and sure enough, it is. Man, you give me Air Bud, Sister Act, and Weekend at Bernie's 2, and
it's a party.
It's a party.
So, Cris, where can people find you?
Well, my website is monarchaudio.com.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter, which I believe is Monarch Audio.
Mm-hmm.
And or you could just look me up on Facebook. I have a fan page there that's the music of Cris Velasco, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like when you talk about yourself in the third person. That's nice.
Honestly, George is getting upset.
Exactly, George is getting upset. Good reference.
Yeah, honestly though, I always forget to update it, and I feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you need to get people. You need to get people.
Me up on Facebook. That's CRIS, no H.
Got it.
But yeah, if you want to listen to any music, I'm redoing my website right now. It's up and running, but it's missing a little content. But there's still a bunch on there.
And if anyone's looking to hire you, they can find your agent's information on the website, right?
It is on the website.
Fantastic. Cris, man, thank you so much for taking out the time, brother. I really appreciate it. It was a joy speaking to you again.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. And I thought I had made a huge mistake all those years ago when we met, and turns out it was only a slight mistake.
It's like, exactly. Thanks, brother.
All right, talk to you later.
Man, I love working with Cris, man. He is awesome. I've worked with him on multiple projects, and I hope you got a little bit of insight of what it's like to work with a composer, especially a composer of Chris's stature, who's been doing this for quite some time and has worked on some very, very big projects. And as we move forward on This Is Meg and me working with Cris, we'll definitely keep you updated on what we're doing and how we're working together, and that will hopefully be as well in the Indie Film Syndicate micro budget filmmaking masterclass that is This Is Meg. So don't forget to head over to indiefilmsyndicate.com. That's indiefilmsyndicate.com. And check out the over 40 hours of online filmmaking courses, ebooks, articles, the entire Indie Film Hustle podcast library at your disposal. And we're going to be adding new courses and new content every month to the new community. So definitely check it out, indiefilmsyndicate.com. And of course, if you want to help us out on This Is Meg, just head over to thisismeg.com. We're going to be going until July 21st, 30 days. So anything you guys can do for us, please, please, please help us out. I would really, really, truly appreciate it. And don't wait to the end, please. We have some really cool incentives like autographed pictures of James Cameron for my private collection, as well as my autographed book of The Fall by Guillermo del Toro, which he actually does a caricature as well as being a guest on the Indie Film Hustle podcast. If you have a film that you want to promote, or a company or yourself, or you just want to come on the show and just chat about film geek stuff, that's a possibility. All you have to do is look at that incentive and hit us up. So thank you guys so much. I really hope you're learning a whole lot from this process that I'm going through with This Is Meg. I'll be continuously putting out more and more new stuff as I go through this journey together. And thank you, by the way. Thank you for giving me the courage to go out and do this, because honestly, I'm doing this not only for myself to make my first feature film, but I'm also doing it so I can share the experience with you guys. So I'm not sure if I would have gone through with it without having you guys around to share this with. So I do truly appreciate that. And of course, the show notes for this episode are indiefilmhustle.com/082. As promised, I am going to now close out the show with Chris's Star Wars demo, which is quite remarkable. So keep that hustle going, keep that dream alive, and may the Force be with you.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. So you guys are still here. Well, considering you guys are still here and you are true Indie Film Hustle tribe members, I wanted to let you guys listen to Chris's original score he did for my short film Red Princess Blues. I'm putting in the opening section and the end credit sequence, which is pretty fun, man. And you can kind of tell the quality of Chris's work, not only from the thing you just heard, but this is an awesome piece. Maybe I'm biased because it's from my movie, but definitely take a listen. So enjoy, guys.